Honestly, I totally missed out on the Sega Master System when it first released. I've only discovered this console's library through retro collecting years later. But man, once I started digging into the Master System library, I realized what I've been missing out on. While most of the world had been obsessing over the NES and SNES, Sega was low-key dropping these beautiful and artfully made ports that hold up to this day. I've fallen down a rabbit hole with this system lately. So here are 15 forgotten Sega Master System gorgeous pixel-perfect arcade games that nobody talks about. Wow, that's a mouthful. Power Strike 1988. Originally known as Aleste in Japan, this is considered the gold standard top-down shooter of the system. When the game was exported from Japan to overseas, the name Aleste was swapped out for Power Strike, and the anime-style story cutscenes were removed, as well as the final level of the game. In the game, you're tasked with piloting the Aleste fighter to destroy a biomechanical plant organism called GAM that's threatening Earth. Its gameplay is fast, frenetic, and your screen is absolutely filled with amazingly detailed backgrounds, enemies, and projectiles. You have a main gun, and you have 8 different special weapons you can cycle through by picking up numbered power-ups. The movement is fluid and intuitive, which you'll definitely need to dodge and hit all those projectiles. The only real problem I have with this game is that if you lose your powered-up special weapon late in the game, it's basically impossible to finish, and you have to start over. Power Strike 2 1993. This game is surprisingly very different from the first Power Strike. Heck, it's not even the sequel to Power Strike 1. There were 6 other sequels released in the Aleste series from 1989 to 1992. Chalk it up to international publishers to mock the nomenclature and release order of their games. Anyway, Power Strike 2 is set in an alt-history 1930s, where you play as a pilot in a retro-futurist world hunting down sky pirates. It's the same Power Strike formula, but it adds a charged shot mechanic and a more refined system. The level variety is amazing, and you'll be flying over many cozy vistas. The bosses are multi-stage behemoths that require strategic planning, timing, and some puzzle solving to defeat. The vibrant, detailed sprite work alone makes this game a must-play for this system. Astro Warrior 1986. Astro Warrior is what I consider to be a pure top-down shooter. No fluff, no extra. It takes the Gradius formula and refines it into an arcade title with no flaws. The movement is snappy, and the combat is unyielding. The perfect classic arcade feel. You start off with a puny single shotgun, but by collecting upgrades, you slowly get more and more powerful. But be careful, one hit and you're back to square one. In this game, you're a lone pilot flying the Astro 7 spaceship through an enemy-infested sector of deep space to take down the Great Devil at the galaxy's core. The levels are divided into 3 main zones: the galaxy, the asteroid belt, and the enemy base. The game is short and repetitive, but the soundtrack is catchy and fun. This makes for a great pickup and playtime passer of a game. R-Type 1988. It's actually pretty amazing how they managed to compress R-Type into a 512 KB cart. This does make the R-Type the most intensive game the Master System can run, which shows. In R-Type, you play as the pilot of the R9 fighter defending humanity against the grotesque Bido Empire. This is a side-scrolling, horizontal shooter where the defining mechanic is the Force Pod, a glowing orb you can attach to the front or back of your ship or launch across the screen to act as a turret. The artworks and levels of this game are legendary, very HR Gigeresque. The enemies are incredibly creative, especially the bosses, which are all grotesque, horrifying, and massive. Fantasy Zone 2 1987. This game is like a child's fever dream. You control Opa Opa, a sentient spaceship with wings trying to stop the invasion of the Nenan planet. In this game, you're free to fly left or right at any time, making the level feel much larger and open. The goal is to destroy several bases in each level before the boss appears. Combat involves a mix of gunfire and bomb dropping. There is also a shop where you purchase upgrades using coins dropped from enemies. With unique visuals, gameplay, and mechanics, this is a shoot-'em-up like none other. Quartet, 1987. Quartet is a sci-fi run-and-gun in the same vein as the original Duke Nukem. You play as one of 2 characters rather than the original 4 in this stripped-down Master System version, and you're tasked with recovering a stolen coffin from space pirates. A big feature here is the jetpack, which allows you to hover and boost through tight corridors. There are also power-ups such as bouncy shots and wide beams. The levels are surprisingly varied for this type of game, ranging from metallic industrial areas to alien jungles. I find the timer to be rather aggressive, disincentivizing you from exploring the levels. Alien Syndrome, 1987. This game is basically made for the fans of the Aliens franchise. You play as either Ricky or Mary, a sort of colonial marine, if you will, who are sent into infested spaceships to rescue hostages and get out before a bomb goes off. It's a top-down 8-directional shooter. The gameplay is fun and fast-paced, running around the corridors of the ship, gunning down aliens and rescuing people. You start with a rifle, but you can find flamethrowers and lasers that are essential for survival. The bosses are massive screen-filling monstrosities with multiple forms. Action Fighter 1986. Mashing together elements from Spy Hunter and Power Strike, Action Fighter makes for a varied and entertaining game. You start as a motorcycle, but as you collect parts, you transform into a car and eventually a jet. The game shifts between Spy Hunter-style driving and Power Strike-style flying. Combat involves shooting down enemy vehicles and dodging obstacles at high speeds. When you're in car mode, the movement feels very fast and twitchy, while the flying sections feel more like a traditional shoot-'em-up. The jet takeoff sequence is very hyped to watch for a game of this era. OutRun 1987. A true classic. The racing genre wouldn't be here if not for OutRun. You play as a cool guy with a Ferrari, and you have your girlfriend in the passenger seat. You're driving breakneck across beautiful landscapes against the clock. You have to keep your girlfriend impressed by driving tight, driving right, and being as cool as possible. Gameplay is all about drifting and managing your gear shift. The level variety is the star here. The iconic level pathing allows you to choose where you want to go by driving to the left or right in each level through the larger map. It's a great way to catch the picturesque California summer in your living room. Afterburner 1987. Speed, maneuverability, and quick thinking is the name of the game here. You're in the cockpit of an F-14 Tomcat, flying high in the skies, shooting and dodging in this dogfighter game. It uses a pseudo 3D perspective that fakes camera rotation and tilting, and it was absolutely mind-blowing for a 1987 game. Combat has you rapid-firing machine guns and locking onto enemies and unleashing your missiles. The movement is so cool as your plane rolls and dives across the skies. The game has different colored backgrounds and ground tiles to denote different levels, while the enemy variety isn't great. But when you're dogfighting this feverishly, you don't have time to worry about such things. Thunderblade 1988. Thunderblade lets you pilot a combat helicopter on a mission to destroy a rogue guerrilla army. What makes this game cool is how it switches perspective. You start off with a top-down vertical shooter game, then all of a sudden, it switches into a behind-the-vehicle pseudo 3D view. Combat involves firing cannons at flying enemies and dropping bombs onto ground enemies. The movement in the 3D sections is very fun as you weave through skyscrapers, caves, and canyons as you gun down more flying enemies. The bosses are giant military vehicles or bases that need to be blown up. I love the concept, and it's rather bold to basically fit 2 complete games into one cart. Shinobi 1987. Having a game as technically complex as Shinobi running on an 8-bit machine this well is kinda insane. You play as Joe Musashi, a ninja on a mission to rescue kidnapped children from the Z terrorist clan. It's a side-scrolling action platformer where you use shurikens, nunchucks, and other stereotypical ninja weapons to dispatch of enemies. Gameplay is slow and methodical, and you can jump between different heights of the stage. The levels range from cities to forests to traditional Japanese temples and so on. The bosses are here in their full glory, from the giant Ken-O to the helicopter, and they require a lot of pattern memorization. This version does lack the bonus round from the arcade, but they do add a health bar and weapon upgrades, which makes this version way more playable in my opinion. Kenseiden, 1988. This game has such a dark atmospheric vibe. You are Hayato, a samurai traveling across feudal Japan to recover the 5 secret scrolls and defeat the warlocks. It's a side-scrolling action game that reminds me of Strider. The combat is katana-based and you unlock new moves such as an overhead slash or a jumping strike as you progress. Movement is slow and lumbering, forcing you to be deliberate about your positioning and timing attacks. Could this be considered the Dark Souls of the Master System? The levels feature creepy and macabre locals such as graveyards, haunted forests, and monster-infested Japanese castles. All the enemies and bosses are based on Japanese folklore and myth, and they are actually difficult to beat one-on-one. The map system allows you to choose your path through the world, making it feel large and fully explorable. G-Loc Air Battle 1992. This is a spiritual successor to Afterburner. If you don't mind the cockpit taking up half your screen, then you may prefer this over Afterburner. It has the same intense dogfights as Afterburner, but here, they include more varied targets and bosses such as giant planes and what appears to be an armored hot air balloon? The gameplay is way more varied here, including objectives other than kill everything, and even segments where you zoom out and take control of other planes. The 90s was considered the golden age of flight sims, and G-Loc helps prove why that is. Submarine Attack 1992. I think Submarine Attack is a rather underrated gem. You control the submarine christened Admiral as you navigate the deep sea to stop a generic evil empire. It's a side-scrolling horizontal shooter, but because you're underwater, the game feels different. You can move up and down, fire torpedoes forward, and missiles upwards to hit enemies. The forward versus upwards play is important because unlike most shoot-em-ups, where threats only ever come from one direction, usually the direction you're facing, here they can come from in front or above. And you have to basically juggle these two threat vectors. The levels feature colorful coral reefs, sunken ruins, and high-tech underwater bases. You start fighting basic submarines and boats, but as you progress through the levels, you start fighting moving statues, skeletons, sea creature-like ships, to basically spaceships and underwater. The only real annoyance I have with the game is that your player hitbox is like way too big, and it's quite frustrating, thinking you've dodged a projectile or passed a cave wall only to take damage. The Sega Master System might have been overshadowed by the NES, but looking back at these games, the hardware was capable of some truly impressive feats. And I'm not just saying they were pretty cool for an 8-bit system for their time, but they are genuinely fun, beautiful, and pixel perfect. If you feel like you're up for that classic 8-bit game challenge, whether you're a hardcore collector or someone looking to explore retro games, these 15 games are well worth experiencing.